Good day, good day, good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Patreon video. Ladies and gentlemen, either or neither, welcome to another Patreon video. Man, what a hectic week, but actually more of a hectic Saturday. So just to give you all a heads up, let me move this closer, to give you all a heads up, this Patreon video might be divided into two parts, and it will most definitely contain human biological processes. So if any of that freaks you out, you've been warned. But before we get to that part, let's get on with the week. Lots of 7 Days to Die with the Alpha 20 around the corner, man. That's basically what we did this entire week, right? This entire week we did 7 Days to Die. Things are going smoothly in that game, in the server and everything. Can't wait to have an Alpha 20 sub-server going. And that's about it with regards to the Twitch stream and everything. It's getting hotter and hotter. I'm glad I'm streaming at nighttime now. And I also love the fact that you guys are commenting on my Patreon videos like, oh, okay, cool, this is what you kind of want to do. This is kind of... I get like a general feel for it. And now on to the story. I wonder if I can find it here. I wonder if I can find that here. That's not at all. Maybe, let's see if I can find it. Give me a few. Let me see if I can find it quickly. If I can find it, I'll show it to you. Oh, here we go. Here we go. That's just advertisement for it. But there should be photos at some point. Okay, let me just tell you, there should be photos at some point that I'll share with you on my Twitch channel of how these chilies looked, what they look like, chili chips. But yesterday we did the one chili chip challenge. And, we got there yesterday I got there just after 1. And everybody got there around 2-ish. And about 2:30 to quarter to 3, we started the recording. And the chili chip is about yay big. I'm not kidding. It is really big. And apparently, the chilies this chip contains is Carolina Reaper, some sort of chocolate Reaper, and a bunch of other stuff. So it's quite a hot chip. And this is the day I almost died. Okay, this is a story about how I almost died. And it started off with the chili chip challenge. So to prepare for this, because I knew it was a chip, and I knew it's going to be a bunch of chemicals being shoved into my body, I decided to go with preparing my body for the chip challenge by buying a bunch of Doritos Flaming Hot Doritos chips. And I ate 2 packets on Thursday. And Friday, because I don't want my mouth to be raw when I eat that chili chip, I didn't eat anything on Friday. Well, any of the Doritos on Friday. And Saturday come around and we're getting there. So we sit down. And it's a big chip. It's a big chip. You can't break it. You can't do anything. But it's a big chip. It's this reddish color. And also that's why I look this way that I look right now. You're gonna find out soon why I look this way. So you sit down and eat, and what happens is it's a one chip challenge, and while we eat the chip, one guy asks us a bunch of questions. Luckily not for me, I was only there as part of the tattoo team, and the actual tattoo artist, the guy who did this, the actual tattoo artist answered all the questions. But we're eating there, and I'm eating, and I'm like, I've got a glass of Coke in front of me. There's some cream, and there's some yogurt and milk and stuff. There's a glass of Coke in front of me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm aiming for that glass of Coke. Sugar and chilies, best thing to beat that burn in your mouth. So I'm sitting there, take 2 bites out, and I eat it, and I take another bite. Now, if you look at the chip from the top, if you break it open, if you bit into it, it looks like a tiny piece of rice paper, and then there's about a centimeter layer worth of chip, 10 millimeters layer worth of chili spices around this thing. So you know how hot it can be. Because there was this little white stripe in the middle of the chip as I was holding it like this and I'm eating it. But you bite into it, and it's basically, the best way I can describe it, it's like flour exploding in your mouth. You bite into it, and there's this powdery substance in your mouth. And you bite into it again, more powdery substances. Bite into it again, I think I finished it in 3 or 4 bites. And I'm like sitting there chewing. One of the tips that people told me is, mush it up and then swallow. Don't swallow it whole, because that'll just screw you over in about 4 or 5 hours. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm mushing it up and I'm swallowing, and I'm like, okay, it's hot. I'm sweating. I'm crying. I wipe my hands on the piece of wet cloth. I'm crying. I'm taking, and because the chip like touched my beard, my lips were flaming and my mouth was on fire. Take like a sip of the Coke. It kind of helped. Take another sip. And the problem is, because it's all powdery chili stuff, it gets lodged like between your teeth, and like anywhere it can lodge in your mouth, that's where it'll lodge. So I take another sip of Coke and I swish it around my mouth and swallow. Take another sip, swish it around my mouth and swallow. And we're sitting there, and this is a 10-minute interview, okay? And we're sitting there, and he's asking questions. I'm like, I'm just ask him. At one time, I swore at the tattoo artist. At one point, the guy next to me started throwing up. Now, for me, if I hear someone throw up, I want to throw up. So I grab the bucket underneath it, because they had buckets ready for us underneath our chairs. And I grab the bucket, and I'm like, ugh, and I just dry heave, spit a few times. And I put the bucket down. I'm like, okay, cool. And every time this guy throws up, if we watch them, we will watch the video together. Every time this guy throws up, I'm like trying to lean away. I don't want to hear it, but I'm so freaking on fire. It's not even funny. So I'm drinking my Coke and they're talking, but I'm timing it. I'm timing my Coke. I'm like, okay, cool. Once this interview is over, I'll finish the Coke, and then, we'll do whatever we can. And I'm sitting there, and the tattoo artist next to me from Studio One Tattoos, he's just sitting there answering questions, and he's okay. And I'm like, I just want to run, man, because it's hot. It is hot. And it's in the middle of summer here in South Africa. So you know how bad that can be. And finally, the 10 minutes are over. And I'm like sitting there, and the tattoo artist stand up. He's like, dude, stand up. You'll feel better. I'm like, nope. I know my body. I'm going to sit for a few minutes. And once I feel able to stand up, I'll stand up. And I'm sweating. Dude, like, I've never had my eyeballs sweat. Okay, guys? I've never had my eyeballs sweat. It happened yesterday. So I'm sitting there, just chilling for a few minutes, finish my Coke, and I hand him a bit of my Coke. I'm like, dude, just swallow this. It'll take the burn away from your mouth and your throat. And he's like, cool. After the interview also, the guy from the vape shop got up and went to the bathroom immediately. And we're like, okay, cool. He goes to the bathroom. And I'm standing there, and I'm uncomfortable, but it's over. I'm uncomfortable, but it's over. So I'm standing there drinking another Coke, After a while, I light up a cigarette, and I drink. And about 30 minutes after we ate the chili chip challenge, the tattoo artist went to the bathroom. And I'm sitting there among the people talking to them, but, talking as little as possible because I feel uncomfortable. That's my thing. I feel uncomfortable, and I'm talking as little as possible to them. And they're like, are you good? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. For now, I feel good. Let's just... I just want to make sure my friends and everybody else that ate these chips are good. And after a while, someone goes to the bathroom. They're like, no, the guys are throwing up in tandem. So this guy throws up, and then this guy throws up. This guy dry heaves, and this guy throws up. And then he dry heaves and this guy tries to throw up. Stuff like that. So both of them were like literally like taking turns of throwing up. And they like, go check on your friends. I'm like, no, if I hear them, I'm going to throw up. I know myself. I'm going to throw up. And that happens, and I get and order a second Coke after the chili chip challenge. Order my second Coke, and I sit there, and people are like, man, but you're handling this quite well. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm pretty damn good. And about an hour after those guys, after the tattoo artist went to the bathroom, right? The vape store guy, the vape guy, comes out and he looks at his lift, he points at his lift, and he points at the car, and he just walks. And he takes his bucket with him. And he talks to the one guy, he's like, listen, dude, I'm going to take a bucket, I'll bring it back. I'm like, cool. So that guy has finished throwing up. So this is about, like I said, an hour and a half after the chili challenge, or an hour after the tattoo artist went to the bathroom. And we're sitting there, it's like, oh crap, it's getting late. It's about, 4 o'clock maybe even just after 4. And they're like, okay, cool, let's go grab him and get him into the car. So I'm walking with them. I'm like, yes, I'll help carrying them and all that. I'll help them carry the poor guy. And get there. They're like, no, they're going to help the guy. And I'm talking to the guy, but I'm still fine. I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable, but fine. And I make sure they're in the car, and I know the other guy's at home already. I make sure the tattoo artist gets in the car, and I tell them, listen, I'm going to drive home. But how I know my body is the moment I start feeling uncomfortable, I will get away from people. I just go, you know. I'm like, cool. And I usually have enough time to get home and then treat myself. You know, with alcohol and everything, I usually have enough time to get home safely and then look after myself. So I drive out, and I drive out in front of the tattoo artist because they were still talking and everything. So I drive out in front of him. His wife is driving. I'm driving out in front of them, about 3 or 4 cars, like about a minute or so in front of them. And I'm driving down this road, opening the window, and I'm like, I'm okay. And all of a sudden, my stomach starts cramping. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's cramping. I can go for a bit more. I mean, it's not that far. It's about a 15-minute drive to my house. It's not that far. And I continue first road, pass the first turn off with the road. I'm like, no, I still need to go straight. And just before I hit the second one, my whole body goes, I get that sweat you get on your upper lip when you want to vomit. And I start sweating. I start like sweating immediately. And I pull to the side of the road, park there, and I get out of the car because I know if I don't get out of the car, and I know the tattoo artist's wife is going to drive this road on their way home. And I know if I don't get out of the car, they're not going to see me, you know? So I try to phone her. Firstly, she doesn't pick up. I get out of the car and I stand to the side of it and I'm like, okay. And I dry heave like 2 or 3 times. I dry heave and I look up and I'm looking for cars. And in the distance, I can see their car coming. And I'm like, okay, whatever you do, Zaffa, do not crumple down. Just get enough energy, strength to stand, look her in the eye, and shake your head when she drives past. So so I see the car and I'm like, ugh, and I'm trying, dry heaving a bit, and I'm like, and I spit a few times, and a car comes closer and she drives past me and I wave at her, I point at her and I'm like, and I go limp on the sidewalk, in between thorns and everything, literally on a trash bag. Okay, I go limp. Okay, and like as I fall, I'm probably a couple of seconds. I wake up. I'm like, no, I'm in trash. No, let's just clean myself off. But I'm literally sick. Okay, I've been poisoned. That's essentially what happened. And after like probably, it felt like 17 minutes, but it's probably like a minute. She parks next to me. She's got her friend with. And she's like, okay, you're getting in my car. I'm getting your car. And we're going to get you to our house. I'm like, you know what? I don't fucking care. I just want to lie down. I want to go lie down in a cold tub of water or something because I'm sweating now and the cramps are getting hectic and it feels like I'm drunk, right? And we go, and we go, and we go, right? And we get into the car. And I'm lying next to the guy, the tattoo artist. Now, he's been processing it a bit better than I have at the moment because I had a delayed reaction. So he's had about an hour and a half on me already, maybe 2 hours on me with his digestive system. So he's literally like, I'm lying down next to him in the back of her Taz. And he's like, oh man, this is so bad. And he starts talking. And I just like, dude, I love you, but shut the fuck up. Please don't talk. I need to focus, right? And I look up at the ceiling of the car, this gray ceiling, and I touch it. I'm like, okay, cool. And I open up the window because I feel something's gonna come out. So I open up the window. I almost opened up the door, but they had a child lock on, right? So I open up the window and I stick my head out and I look over at his wife. I'm like, just get us home. I'm getting frustrated. I'm like, just get us home. And she's like, no. And she parks the car to the on the one in parking, my car in parking. And she gets into the car and I'm like, okay. So I'm lying there. This guy next to me, he's like, and I'm like, you know, stomach cramping. And I'm like, I want to throw up, but there's nothing that I know how it feels if I do want to throw up. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, and we're driving and I just see like trees go past and I see the gray roof of the car, a gray ceiling bit of the car. I'm like, okay. And I'm sweating. I'm literally feeling water dripping into my ears as I'm sweating. I'm like, okay. And I feel like droplets of water in between my beard going down. And I'm like, okay. This is hectic. This is hectic. So we drive and the moment we start driving, I feel better. So whatever, like, how I handle things is I handle it in short bursts. So I'm like, okay, we're driving. I shouldn't throw up until we stop. Okay? And we're driving. And eventually, what felt like 20 minutes, but probably more like 2, the car stops. It opens. The back part of the car opens, the boot, because it's a Toyota Taz. It opens up. And you'll have to wait until the second part of this video. Thank you everybody for watching. And let's go say thanks to my patrons. And let's start off with our kings and queens. Our queen, Great Susie. Our Jarl, Hurflex. Our Carl, Noctis Silence. Our 2 thralls, Scorecrag and Minosha. And the rest of them, the lurkers, Big Nick, D Fries, Dominic, JC Hunter, Jumpy Humpy Spider, Matt Durana, Second Class Elitist. Thank you everybody. And Mika. Sorry, I just had to scroll down a little bit. And Mika. Thank you everybody for your patronage. And I will see you in the next video.